Okay, I'm back with another video. I wanted to go over how models work in Neverwinter Nights. So basically, each tile here, for this tile set, for example, I'm using it just to explain. Everything on this tile, or say this one has got like a rock or some dirt, and this has got some water or whatever, each one of those are connected to what they call Arura Base, which is what this drawing is here. This, the way it's displayed in Gmax, which makes a little more sense because Blender don't display it, but in Gmax it has a little invisible plane with a little pointer on to let you know which way it's going, and it's set, this little plane is set at 0 on the X coordinates, 0 on the Y coordinates, and 0 on the Z coordinates. And then everything on your tile, the tree, say the leaves, the pond, or the water, a rock, the ground, is all linked to this Arura Base. And this is set at 0, 0, 0. Then you want this centered on this as well. So when it's called for into this slot, when it's called for it, that it'll be centered up. Now, if your plane, say for example, say this here, is not centered on this axis with this Arura Base centered as well, then when it's called for, it'll be off in game. So it'll be shifted, to the side some. There'll be a gap, and you see through the world or whatever. So you want to make sure. Now, and one of these tiles are 10M across and 10M the other, or basically 500 out from the X this way, and then 500 out from the X line this way, 500 out from the, or not 500, I meant 5M. So, for example, where's not Blender? Or yeah, Blender. Here on your coordinates, you have a single tile. For example, let's do in a single tile would be a plane. Shift A. Let's call forth a plane. Okay, there's that. There's my plane underneath there. That would be example of, say, Arura Base. And then let's call forth, or let's just duplicate Z. Let's just duplicate that. Shift D. Okay, and tab, or not. Let's do rotate Z axis. So I'll hit the Z key and I'll do 45. Okay, something along that line. And then G for grab, and then Y for move. We'll move it up, something like that, and scale, which is S, and we'll scale it down a bit and slide it back. G, X, or Y, and that way you can kind of get an idea of something like what I'm talking about. So say that's your Arura Base, right? And everything on here, the wheels, the wood, the flagpoles, the top, everything is linked to that. For example, it's called Caravan in mine for Blender here, and it just shows this, but it don't show like something out here like it does in Gmax as much. In Gmax, you have to grab each thing. You have to go down here and click on that, make sure it's linked, and if the model's sitting right on top of it, it's kind of a pain sometimes. In here, it's a lot easier. In here, they just call it a parent. So let's say I was to click on this here, which is one of the models in my scene, and I was to click on the square here, objects, then it goes to relations, and this says parent. So now it tells me the value. It says caravan. It tells me it's linked to this caravan. So every object I have, see, same thing with this one, same thing with this one. Now, if you don't want it to be linked to the caravan anymore, because say, for example, if I grab this caravan and I do hit G and Z, whoop, my bad. Grab this, G, Z. Alright. G, Z. Well, it's not letting me do it at the moment. But anyhow, if I grab something and how I can move it. Well, you do the same thing with the caravan. Oh, let me go to model view. Same thing with caravan. Well, normally, okay. Anyhow, you can raise it. Everything's linked to it. Oh, I don't have it selected there. See how I had that little thing turned on and off? Now it'll let me select it. G, Z. Alright. Anyhow. So now you can take and grab it, everything's linked to that. So when I want to export, it'll export with it. If I don't, then it won't. See, now I got the caravan selected up there, and I grabbed it, and I can move it along the Z-axis or X-axis, but it moves everything. However, if I would say to pick this here, which looks like it's this one here. Okay, if I wanted to unlink it so that this would no longer move with it, I would go to the object down here, the square, go to parent, and take it off. Bam. So it's no longer not even moved because it's not based on where the location of the it's not based on the location of where the Arura Base is, or what is called, what I named caravan here in Blender. So it's not based on that there any longer. Therefore, however, if I hit G, Z, and I move everything, you notice it's no longer moving these. They're not moving no more because it's not linked to that Arura Base anymore. Or what they call parent here in Blender. Okay, so if I want them to reconnect it to it, then I need to go to that model right here, which is cylinder right there, which you can name it better. Like I should have named those like tarp, for example, or whatever. Okay, then go to the model, and once I'm there, then I want to go down to parent, and then I can look for caravan and link it to the caravan. And once I link it to the caravan, now it is linked back up to where it moves with it once again. And when I export, it'll export with it. So I just right click on the caravan, which with tripod thing there, which is Arura Base, and like I said, in Gmax, but 3ds Max. But that's what I started with, so that's what I kind of relate stuff with. Export as an MDL file. It'll export everything that's linked to that. However, so if you have a model that you got and you bring it in here in MDL, which would the MDL would have the type of Arura Base, or it'll have one object that everything is linked to. If you want to take, say, something off of it, say if I had a tile that had a tree on it, I'm like, I want that tree. So I can bring the model in here, and I could take and grab, say, the tree, for example. I'm just using this one here as an example. And I go down here, and I take parent away, right? And then I could delete everything else in the scene, right? Whoop. I highlighted that on accident. Okay. I could take and delete everything else in the scene if I wanted, right? Once I delete everything else in the scene, then I can bring in the new tile that I wanted. And once I have just the new tile that I wanted in here, then I would take and find its base, and then I go down and select my model that I want to connect to that new base. I select it. So for example, let's just I'll do something here. Let's call for import Arura Base. Caravan wants something different. So creatures, Mechalot, MDL right here. Okay, so now I have a Mechalot, right? Now, if I select this, I can move just the Mechalot, but these aren't moving because it's not connected to it, because I took it from that other tile or that other model or whatever. So I click on this. Now I can go to parent, now I can go to Mechalot, and I link it, So then so when I want to move, it's now connected to that. And when I export this model, we click on Mechalot and I go to export this model, it'll export this connected with this. And therefore when it's called in the game, it'll be with it. So everything's called into the game by the MDL, which is the base that everything is connected to. Anyhow, I just wanted to make a video explaining the relationships on how to connect the Arura Base, or a parent in Blender is what it's called, connecting everything to the parent. So everything else, just think of everything else as like children, and they belong to a parent. So whenever you're working on a model, you will have a parent that all the little children belong to. It's got to be connected to. And as long as they're all connected to that, then when you export that parent, all the children go with it. And when you import it, all the children come with it. And then when the game calls for that parent, all the children that's connected to it will be called for into the game. Same thing kind of goes for, like, say, this model here. He's in pieces, you know. But no matter how many pieces it is, all these little pieces or children are connected to the parent. So when called for this creature in game, it calls for the parent, and then all the parts come with it, along with any animations are linked to the parent, and along with animations, models, textures, any of that's linked. Well, the textures are linked to each model piece. So like this piece here has a texture it's calling for. So if I wanted to know what that was, I can go down here to materials. And once I click on materials, I could go through here and find where it is. Or wait, it's up here. What am I doing? It's right here. It's calling for this texture. So anyhow, but if you want to, the texture is linked to this model, and the model is connected to, or the mesh, model or mesh, and it's connected to the parent. So anyhow, hopefully that helps you to understand how you can bring a model or tile or whatever from MDL file into Blender from Neverwinter Nights. Take whatever you want from it, bring in a new model from Neverwinter Nights, or a model from Neverwinter Nights, and then link it to the new one. And therefore you could take say a piece of water that has some land to it, and you could take a tree and a rock from another tile and link it to the tile that has the water, and then say the tree isn't in the right spot. You're like, I want to move that tree a little bit. So if you wanted to, you just hit tab, you go to these verts, and you can grab just that one tree and highlight it. I just did a left click and highlight, drag and highlight, and then you hit G, and you know why, move it over a little bit, and you're like, oh no, it needs to go along the x-axis a little bit, and it needs to touch the ground a little bit, so GZ, and they'll come down a little bit, and then you position that tree right on where you want it, say on the edge of the water, and then it's in place, and you're good. And then on your new tile, and then you go, I want the rock, so highlight this, go G X, I want the rock, or I said X, to be GY, and GX, or X, I want the GX, I want the rock to be over here, but you know what, that rock's too big, so I'll hit S for scale that rock down, GX, but I want it to be kind of G and Z. I want it to be kind of right next to the tree a little bit, something like that, or whatever. And then you're setting up your scene, and because we already linked it to it, if you go down here to go ahead and hit tab, will take you out of the edit mode, but you go down here to the object and you look at parent, it's already linked, so that way when we export it, it'll export together. Anyhow, hopefully that helps some people. If you like it, subscribe, hit the notification if you want to see new videos, and comments. But hopefully it helps some people. I'll see you at the next video. Thanks.